PS5 exclusive survival horror game Abandoned has been turning heads since its reveal earlier this year, but it's also generated quite a bit of interest for another reason. Despite Blue Box Game Studios outright denying that Abandoned has any kind of association with Hideo Kojima or Silent Hill, rumors have persisted that the game is secretly being developed by Kojima Productions. And now it seems Blue Box is leaning into those rumors with its latest social media post. Blue Box Game Studios has released an image that shows the Abandoned logo along with the real-time experience that's coming next month. For the uninitiated, the Abandoned real-time experience is an app that will go live on August 10th. Later in August, the app will be how those interested in Abandoned can see a new trailer for the game. Preload will apparently be available starting July 29th, though the app has been delayed in the past, and there's always a chance it could get pushed back again. The background of the image is blurred, but it looks very similar to Big Boss of Metal Gear Solid fame, complete with eye patch. The eye patch is on the wrong eye, but otherwise this seems to be a clear attempt to further stir the pot and continue the conspiracy theory that Abandoned is a secret Hideo Kojima game. As previously stated, Blue Box has repeatedly denied that it has any connection with Hideo Kojima, Konami, or Silent Hill. One would think that the studio would try to distance itself from these comparisons, especially since it has one of its denials as its pinned tweet. However, this new image is only serving to further connect Abandoned with Kojima and Konami. The only difference is that this is drumming up Metal Gear Solid comparisons, instead of the usual Silent Hill ones. As for what Kojima's next game is, that remains to be seen. All signs point to Kojima's next title being a horror game, which is something else that has helped fuel the rumors that Abandoned could potentially be from the famed developer. I suspect if this image could indicate that Kojima is behind it, or it could be a Silent Hill and Metal Gear crossover game made by Kojima Productions. Speaking of Silent Hill, there is another controversy going on around on the internet with an image posted by Norman Reedus. Norman Reedus just teased a new Silent Hill game or possibly the return of Silent Hills, also known as PT, a horror game from Konami, Hideo Kojima, and Guillermo del Toro that was famously cancelled in 2015. Taking to Instagram, Norman Reedus, who is set to play a character in the cancelled Silent Hills game, posted a cryptic video clip featuring what appears to be Robbie the Rabbit, a character from Silent Hill 3. This was done with zero context, and thus ignited a whole host of speculation. For those that don't know, Silent Hills was a survival horror game, or the PS4 that began development in 2012. The developer on the game was Kojima Productions, and the publisher was Konami. It was set to be the 9th mainline installment in the Silent Hill series, and like Death Stranding, Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus were involved. In 2014, a demo for the game, PT, was released, and it went viral. To this day, many consider it one of the best horror game experiences ever. That said, all of this came crashing down in 2015. Kojima left Konami and the game was canned. Last year, rumors began to surface the two parties were reuniting with the help of PlayStation to revive the project as a PS5 exclusive. Unfortunately, right now, all we have is speculation, and it doesn't look like that's changing. So far, Reedus hasn't followed up with any additional teases or context, and none of the implicated parties have commented. Until then, take all of this speculation for what it is and with a grain of salt. It is a big week already with a lot of gaming news and PlayStation topics, and Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill reboot conspiracies have taken image again. This may be another hope for us, but we have wait and see until the Abandoned real-time trailer drops and the upcoming PlayStation event arrives. It's been a big week for the massively popular open-world and free-to-play game Genshin Impact. Developer MiHoYo released its biggest update to date, adding the Japanese-inspired Inazuma region for player to explore. All in all, players have 3 new areas inside of the region, new expeditions, daily commissions as well as an all-new reputation system to grind out. Alongside new experiences, the Immovable God and the Eternal Euthymia update also adds in a variety of new characters to unlock. In addition to frequent updates, Genshin Impact has continued to make the experience feel fresh through constantly releasing new characters to unlock. In version 2.0, numerous new characters and weapons were added, including the previously revealed Cryo Sword user Kamisato Ayaka, Pyro Archer Yuamiya, and the tiny Tanuki Ninja Sayu. MiHoYo likely has more surprises in store as the game continues forward, though it shocked a lot of players by announcing a collaboration with Sony. The Horizon Zero Dawn protagonist Aloy is making her way to Genshin Impact's Teviot, joining as a playable character. The collaboration between Guerrilla Games and MiHoYo sees the Nora Huntress joining the roster for a limited time only. The tweet from PlayStation also gives fans a tease at how the Genshin Impact version of Aloy will look, fitting the game's world and visual style incredibly well. Following the reveal, MiHoYo provided additional details on how players can get their hands on Aloy inside of Genshin Impact. The big requirement is that players will need to be at Adventure Rank 20 or above. The Savior from Another World event will be done in 2 phases, with the first starting with the version 2.2 update on October 13th. Anyone who logs in from a PS4 or PS5 console will receive Aloy through the in-game mail. Phase 2 begins on November 24th at the start of version 2.3, which then opens up the offer to players on any platform who have yet to obtain Aloy. This isn't the first crossover event for the popular star of Horizon Zero Dawn. In fact, Guerrilla Games has been more than happy to lend out Aloy to some of the biggest franchises in gaming like Monster Hunter World, where players could unlock her bow and armor before actually unlocking her as a playable character in the Iceborne expansion. Earlier this year, the Hunter joined Lara Croft in a special Fortnite team-up event back in April. It's likely a safe bet that Aloy will be showing up in other places as well. Sony and Guerrilla Games have a gem on their hands. Horizon Zero Dawn was such a hit that the development of Horizon Forbidden West is no surprise. Many of Horizon Zero Dawn's fans agree that Guerrilla Games came up with an excellent perspective on a sci-fi apocalypse, and they can't wait to see what lies beyond the small slice of the ruined United States where Horizon Zero Dawn takes place. However, a strong setting only works if there's a strong protagonist to carry it, and Horizon has that. The IP is inseparable from Aloy, the fearless huntress and engineer at its heart. Horizon Forbidden West was made possible by Aloy. Guerrilla Games makes the most of her throughout Horizon Zero Dawn, telling stories that are made possible by her determined, practical, and technically minded perspective on a world filled with humans who've lost their knowledge of technology. As successful as Aloy is though, it's not just Horizon Forbidden West that's spreading Aloy's influence, she's making new appearances across the game industry. The more visible she becomes, the clearer it is that Sony loves her, and the brighter Horizon's future looks. Over the course of the last several months, Aloy has managed to crop up in a few remarkable places. Sony wouldn't license Aloy out to so many other big names if it didn't feel good about the Horizon IP. Rather than being conservative with Horizon, Sony is using Aloy as one of its most important ambassadors. She appears constantly in PlayStation advertising on top of her appearances outside of her franchise, making her a face as important as Kratos and Spider-Man. Sony is clearly proud of the protagonist that Guerrilla Games came up with. Sometimes it's hard to predict whether an IP as young as Horizon has staying power, but Sony must feel good about Horizon Forbidden West and every game that comes after it. Aloy's appearances in advertising and other games aren't just bolstering the potential audience for the Horizon Zero Dawn sequel, Sony is working hard to establish Aloy as a mascot early on so that she can represent the PlayStation for years to come. That says a lot about what will come after Horizon Forbidden West. There's almost certainly a third game with Aloy at the helm coming after Forbidden West, meaning a huge, sprawling franchise could come of this young universe. Even if Horizon eventually moves on to other protagonists, the franchise will owe everything to Aloy for being such a likable and versatile character. While it certainly remains to be seen whether Aloy endures over many years, Sony's commitment to her is a good sign early on. Guerrilla Games and the Horizon IP have a stalwart ally in their publisher. As good as Aloy's promotion is for the franchise, a clean execution on Horizon Forbidden West is the most important thing for Aloy's future. On the whole, Horizon Forbidden West looks excellent, with enhanced graphics, teased new mechanics, and a plot as enticing as the first game. Unfortunately, Horizon Forbidden West's release date remains a mystery, which might make some fans concerned about the game's state of development. Ideally, Forbidden West still releases this year in order to capitalize on Aloy's latest ventures as best as possible. The uncertainty around Horizon Forbidden West should be a short-term issue though. Fans remain optimistic that it's just a matter of a release date getting announced, and then the franchise will be back on track. Again, Sony wouldn't be pushing Aloy's presence so much if it didn't think Horizon Forbidden West was going to perform. Although the Horizon series has only been around, one can already imagine there's a lot of big things on the way. Aloy has really put in the work, acting as a lens for exploring the new world that Guerrilla Games created, so her continuing appearances across the game industry are only a taste of the many adventures ahead. Aloy became one of my favorites, and I am sure that Horizon Forbidden West will be a holiday 2021 release. Before Horizon Forbidden West, we have plenty of PlayStation games to look forward to, such as Tribes of Midgard, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Fist, Deathloop, Back 4 Blood, Far Cry 6 and more. The Nintendo Switch has seen its fair share of success since it first launched back in 2017. With a compact design like the PSP and PS Vita, and an abundant, impressive library of games, the Nintendo Switch is beloved by many in the gaming community. Although, the console has had a long-standing hardware issue that may be getting closer to being resolved. The Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controllers have been a console staple since the launch of the console, but the controllers have had persistent problems with control stick drift. A rather detrimental issue that will digitally move the control stick in one direction without user input. Many Nintendo Switch owners have experienced controller drift when using the Joy-Cons, but now it seems Nintendo might be developing a more permanent solution. When disassembling a new Legend of Zelda-themed Joy-Con, a Twitter user by the name of Chicken Noodle Gamer noticed two little strips of foam placed on the inner, top and bottom ends of the analog stick. These foam strips seem to indicate that pressure is put on the control stick to hopefully prevent controller drift. An observation that was later followed up by another Twitter user. Twitter user SpawnWave echoed Chicken Noodle Gamer's findings, but also mentioned that similar foam strips were found in a Joy-Con controller purchased a couple years prior. Right now, there's nothing to truly indicate that these foam strips are either the solution or cause of Joy-Con drift, but it at least indicates that Nintendo does appear to be trying to actively figure out an answer to the controller drift problem. Currently, controller drift is by far the biggest hardware issue currently plaguing the Nintendo Switch. To the point where, even the OLED Nintendo Switch model may still suffer from Joy-Con drift. Not to mention the cacophony of lawsuits that Nintendo has faced as a direct result of the sheer consistency of the controller drift issue, many of which have taken place across numerous different countries. However, this does seem like a problem that Nintendo is retroactively trying to fix. Considering how many lawsuits the company has been hit with over this problem, Nintendo stands to lose a lot if this problem doesn't get fixed. With any luck, Nintendo will be able to fix the issue with controller drift in due time. Moving forward, we have a recent report on Nvidia, as details state that Nvidia has finalized its plans for the next generation of graphics cards to follow the 30 series. Nvidia's GeForce 30 series graphics cards remain incredibly rare across most of the world. Yet despite frustrations with acquiring the 30 series cards, they remain incredibly popular. The demand for high-performance hardware among PC gamers remains incredible. It's no surprise then that leaks from Nvidia claim that the company is already wrapping up design plans for its next line of graphics cards, even as 30 series cards remain inaccessible. Clearly, progress waits for no one. Reports say that the codename for the upcoming generation of graphics cards is Ada Lovelace, that it's definitely the next generation of Nvidia GPUs, and that plans have been finalized and will not change. While Greymon55 doesn't explicitly state that this is Nvidia's GeForce 40 series of graphics cards that they're talking about, that's absolutely the implication. If the leak is to be believed, Nvidia is ready to start transitioning out of the 30 series generation of GPUs. Report says TSMC 5nm 100%. TSMC refers to the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is the world's largest semiconductor company and has Nvidia as a customer. 5nm refers to a process for making chips. It doesn't literally mean a 5nm node, but is rather more of a brand used to explain a certain caliber of quality for a semiconductor chip. The 100% implies that they're confident the technology will be TSMC 5nm. For comparison's sake, Nvidia's 30 series of graphics cards are based on Samsung's 8nm process. AMD's 6000 series graphics cards utilize a TSMC 7nm fabrication process. Meanwhile, some semiconductor manufacturers, including Samsung and TSMC, are already preparing to start production on 3nm, though it may be years before that goal is reached. Nvidia's choice of 5nm will move it forward, but AMD is reportedly also moving to 5nm. There's still some question as to whether Nvidia will use TSMC's newest and improved N5P process rather than its N5, however. Earlier in July, Greymon55 also offered up some early details regarding this next-gen Nvidia series of graphics cards release date and performance levels. However, they clarified the leak by saying they're not sure if it's true. Still, they claim that Nvidia's 40 series will release Q4 2022 into Q1 2023. As for performance, they say, 3090 double performance. Obviously, a new generation of Nvidia graphics cards is very exciting, particularly if double the performance of 30 series cards is realistic. The huge, looming question regarding supply remains, however. At this point, some PC gamers are wondering if they'll have access to 30 series cards by late 2022, let alone any newly released Nvidia 40 series card. Most people trying to get their hands on a PlayStation 5 are likely wondering why it's still so hard to do, even 9 months after the console released. There are a number of different reasons why the Sony PS5 has been hard to get. Sometimes it's simply a matter of not being online at the right time, other times it's a matter of scalpers grabbing all the PS5s right after they go on sale. However, sometimes it's because the components that go into these consoles are also seeing sparse availability. In particular, chip shortages have caused an issue when it comes to Sony selling enough consoles to meet demand. When the majority of people think about the effects the COVID-19 pandemic had on the world, their minds usually turn to medical problems. At the beginning of the outbreak, shortages of medical supplies like masks and gloves were making headlines. Then there was the short period of time when people couldn't get hand sanitizer or toilet paper. The supply of most of that kind of stuff has since had a chance to rebound. It might not dawn on most people right away just how hard the tech world was hit by the outbreak. People could not go to work at the plants that made computer chips for things like the PS5 for several months. The effect of stay-at-home orders around the world are still being felt today. As the world began to adapt to how to get things done during the coronavirus pandemic, most businesses, including game developers, started working from home. The problem is that production of high-tech products like the chips that run the PS5 aren't something that can be produced in someone's living room while they're meeting over Zoom. In order to produce these products, people needed to be present in the factories. It appears that the only reason Sony was able to meet any demand at all is because the production of their consoles started before the pandemic shut everything down. To some degree, workers have been able to go back to work. Production of consoles is starting to get to a level where Sony believes it might be able to start meeting more of the PS5 demand in the second half of 2021. However, even those promises could mean that the company isn't going to be anywhere close to meeting demand. The problem is that the demand is also continuing to create shortages. Because there are so many people who are wanting to get their hands on a PS5, the frenzy begins every time another couple of units go on sale. While people have returned to work in the plants that put these things together, some companies still aren't at full staffing levels. Those lower staffing levels can then also lead to lower output, which doesn't match demand. While it can seem to some as though the PlayStation 5 is getting singled out in regards to chip shortages, the rest of the tech market would likely disagree. The same kind of shortages are being seen for computers, and even the automobile industry. Most consumer high-tech markets have been affected in one way or another by the shortages of chips and components. Obviously, not every single of them is facing the kind of shortages the PS5 is. There are a ton of different reasons for that, including just how new the console is compared to other devices. What's not really in debate is that the chip and component shortages Sony is facing are not all that rare. While quite a few analysts believe that chip shortages could extend past 2021, even into 2023, there are some signs on the horizon that things will eventually get better. The fact that shortages are affecting more markets than just the console business could be a good thing in the end, because it has managed to earn Sony, Microsoft, and other companies invested in the gaming community some big allies. Earlier this year, President Joe Biden announced his administration would be getting involved in the situation in order to try and get the production of components and chips running closer to what it was in the years before the pandemic. Biden isn't the only politician who has jumped into the fray either. Last month, the United States Congress made it clear it thinks at least part of the problem is that companies are also having issues with production because they don't have the funds to go back into action full scale. To that end, the Senate passed a bill that will inject more than $50 billion into semiconductor production and research. The U.S. Innovation and Competition Act could eventually lead to a speeding up of production of both the PS5 and Xbox Series X. However, even if that influx of cash is unlikely to boost the market to a degree that is really going to be seen until much later in the year, or more likely 2022. For now, fans are going to have to sit and wait for the companies that rely on these components to correct the situation themselves. One specific solution was offered up by Sony just a few weeks ago. The company is possibly looking to change up the way the PlayStation 5 is designed in order to adapt to the shortages. Of course, that too isn't going to correct the issue of gamers getting their hands on the newest Sony console before the end of this year. For now, at least it appears the PS5 will continue to be somewhat scarce. Speaking of consoles, a game collector by the name of Anthony Bacon has believed that he's found evidence to a long-standing rumor, the existence of a cancelled SNK-developed console. Anthony Bacon is a collector from Chicago who runs a YouTube channel called Video Game Esoterica. The channel's content ranges from rare video game hardware to reviews of video games running on different console versions. For example, Bacon covered an unreleased prototype copy of a Samurai Showdown game, one of SNK's flagship franchises. In a video that was uploaded to his channel, a piece of hardware was brought to his attention, believing it to be linked to a cancelled console that was in development by SNK. This started when a friend of Bacon bought a series of SNK-branded motherboards off of Yahoo Auctions, where he was then asked to investigate the properties of these boards. In Bacon's video documenting his findings, he believes the motherboard belongs to the company's SNK Millennium. This was a console that was meant to be a successor to the Hyper Neo Geo 64, which had signaled SNK's foray into 3D gaming before being shelved 2 years after its release due to little support. In an interview with Eurogamer, Bacon explained some of the details that were behind this motherboard. He explains that the board itself matches the branding and timeframe of the rumored console. The board, however, contains nothing other than the ability to get power. No game development kits or games are present on there, much to the dismay of Bacon. You could probably get a Hello World message running on it if you spent 6 months trying to figure it out, but I think it's more of a very ornate showpiece that shows a little bit of SNK's history that just kind of went missing, and is not really well known about now, Bacon said. The rumors of the SNK Millennium had first shown up around 1999, as a competitor in the console market. Nothing did come from those rumors. The last Neo Geo console released was the Neo Geo Pocket Color, right before the company was sold to Playmore in 2001. This motherboard, however, is evidence that suggests that the console was in development before it was cancelled. The board has since been sent back to the original owner, with Bacon currently sifting through the BIOS file to decompile the coding. While SNK is currently focused on its current roster of games, like the upcoming King of Fighters 15, the possible existence of a lost piece of SNK history being found is still incredible. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and if you want to contribute for the growth of the channel, the link to my PayPal in the video's description and in the channel banner. Donations are always appreciated. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then, from SMPV, it's goodbye.